The Winter Huntsman, Ivan Volkov. Now this one's a bit iffy because I debated whether or not to do this one at all, and that's because he's a very much an old versatile officer. He's a versatile field skills. Now we're going to go into this officer and we're going to try and explain methods of using him at the end. Mastermind. Tactical skill, detonates pre-placed landmines, damaging the enemy of up to 1350 damage coefficient. Now, this is less than stellar in damaging capability. It's below the average of 1500 and it doesn't offer anything different. However, it is above 1200. So this skill scores a neat tidy 3. Master of Disguise. Increases the damage resistance of this officer's troop by up to 15%. That is an average. That's an average ability, so it scores an average score of 3. We get to see a balanced skill. Rugged Survival, balanced. Increases the firepower of this officer's troop by up to 15% and its HP up to 5%. This is a 5. It's a multi-role skill. You can put this on an aid as a train ability, and that is fantastic. We love a little bit of firepower, especially if you're using a unit that needs a high rate of fire and HP combined with the damage resistance in the field. It's nice. Herb Spotter. This officer's troop automatically recovers up to 1% of its HP per second while in the field and not in combat. This won't bring a dead unit back to life, but it will keep a unit in the game. Is it particularly good or useful? Yeah, this skill has its uses. Compared to...
Who says us old guys should stay in the back?
Sergeant Spanner, who's arguably a healer, even though it says that he's defense siege. 1%. So it does the same. I know there's someone else with one. He also goes up to 1%. You could always train an additional one of these onto the officer for 2%, I believe. This is an average field skill. It gets a 3 again. His awakened ability, Mine Detonator. Prep time of 8 seconds, so that's not changed. It does up his tactical skill, this obviously. Detonates a pre-placed landmine, damaging an enemy damage coefficient of 1350. The landmines immobilize the ground force targets for 2 seconds, preventing them from moving, although they can still attack. So we have a very nice immobilization buff here. Very, very handy for chasing someone down. Extremely handy for chasing someone down. This gets a 5. And I'll explain why, because this officer, I see him get misused a lot. So first of all, we'll address the elephant in the room. He's a 3.8. Okay, so he's just above the 3.5 average. He's just above average. However, the score doesn't do him justice. That's because of how you use this officer. This officer, if you use him correctly, can be extremely deadly. And I will do an example. You awaken him, and you awaken Lady Justice, and you stick the pair of them in a Lib helicopter. Specifically a Lib helicopter, because it moves fast. Right? You put him as the captain, and you put Lady Justice as the aide. The tactical skill goes off to immobilize them for 2 seconds. In those 2 seconds, this tactical skill is applied, which then reduces the target speed by a further 50% for 6 seconds, and also increases your speed and damage by 15% for those following 6 seconds. But there's more. You can train in special skills on your captain. So you could train this skill in, Precision Strike, which gives them a damage resist reduction of up to 20%. That's really quite handy, but you don't necessarily have to do that one. You could increase the reload time, rapid reload, another special ability that you could train in.
I could load a rocket launcher in my sleep.
You could train in
I'll follow orders this time.
Meld into the Shadows, the best critical strike-ish special in the game. You could increase your normal attack damage and your critical strike rate by up to 20%. And if you did that, you're going to be hitting hard, you're going to be hitting fast. You could then just target firepower buffs on both the captain and the aide, and you're going to be attacking quickly with a high chance of gaining a critical strike, because of course Lady Justice goes up to 15, and with the aforementioned meld into the Shadows you get 20, so that's a 35% critical strike rating. You could do that. Is that going to give you a lot of standoff? No, not particularly. Is it going to be very useful in base defense? Not particularly either. It's not going to deal a lot of damage. It's going to prevent something from running away. In the field, if you manage to catch a artillery unit, for example, lagging behind, or an anti-tank gun lagging behind, or just a slow SH or an MBT, and you catch them out in the field, these two paired together on a helicopter is going to enable you to hunt them down, disable them, slow them, increase your damage output, and increase your fire. And if you stack for critical strike, you're going to be able to deal a lot of damage. Is there any other way you can use this officer? Well, you could do the same, but on a light tank. And then use Rapier as the aid, and then train in additional critical strike rating from Lady of Justice, or perhaps you would rather take one of the additional skills from Valkyrie. Like I said before, you could take Precision Strike if you're then putting him on a light tank. You could even put him on a main battle tank and he'd be fairly useful in a tank-to-tank fight. It would give you an option. It gives you a 2-second chance to get away from the target that might win out your unit and defeat it. So, yeah. He's got a lot more uses than what his score will do him justice for. He is a very good officer. Just because I've scored him an average, or just above average at 3.8, don't think that he's not worth it. He is kind of worth it. There's about 100 different officers I'd put in front of him, but if you're running tank heavy, i.e. tank hunter, helicopter, light tank, SH, main battle tank, medium tank, heavy tank, so if you're running any of those or just all of those and nothing else, you can worm him in there on a light tank or on a helicopter. You can worm him in there. Hell, you could even put him on a MBT that's a Liberty MBT, because that moves quickly as well. You want the slow or the stun, the immobilization ability. You want to be able to make the absolute most out of that. Just to clarify, I would not, if I'm running one helicopter, put him on a helicopter with Lady Justice. I would make sure my main helicopter was dealing the maximum amount of damage, and then if I happen to have a second helicopter or a light tank, then this guy would come into play, and I would play them as a pair. This guy is utility, okay? He gives you a utility in field fighting. He's not going to be winning bases. He's not going to be saving the day in base defense. This guy is going to be your help in the field at preventing another player from beating you in a tank-on-tank battle when it's just mano a mano. That's it. Even in large AGs, very large AG battles, this is a useful skill to have. At least in there with just one unit, one tank. He has his place. There are other officers I would use ahead of him. So don't think just because I'm saying he's better than his score, you need to be rushing out and investing in this guy. You only need to be investing in this guy if you've got like 5 tanks, you know. If you've got like no artillery, like, or you've got like 3 or 4 tanks, then you can kind of look towards using this guy. That's my thought. You know, Winter Huntsman, he's better than what he looks. Let's be fair, he's slightly better than what he looks.